So, hey, welcome everybody to our Fearless Ambition training today. I love to bring you guys trainings on Wednesday with some fabulous people that I've met along the way. And I actually met Michelle through another Facebook group that we're in for female entrepreneurs. And we kind of bonded because we both have books coming out. Michelle's book just recently came out. I was checking it out earlier. It's called Miss Moneybags. It's doing really well. And I know she worked super hard on that. So let me introduce Michelle. So Michelle is a woman's wealth strategist and a coach to high-flying female entrepreneurs. She is on a global mission to change the way people feel about money, and I could not agree more. Our missions are kind of aligned that way. She really loves to help people eliminate fear and anxiety around the subject of money and educate the masses on how to become financially savvy and earn their worth. She's already helped thousands of people to increase their income and add extra revenue sources to their business and change their money mindset to fearless. She has spoken in front of thousands of entrepreneurs around the globe and is a best-selling author with her new book, Miss Moneybags. Today, Michelle is actually going to share with us her three-part formula to increasing your income and shifting your money anxiety for good. So doesn't that sound lovely? And also, Michelle, can you start by telling the viewers what part of the world you're coming from? Because I know when we met, you were living in one part and then you recently moved. So I'd love to hear all about that.
Yeah, so I'm now in Marbella. I can't stay still. I've got a gypsy spirit, I think, because I get so bored so quickly. And it's great. Running a location independent business means that I can do that. But I was living in Lanzarote, I think, when we spoke, and it's a really little island, which is lovely. It's like paradise, but it's a bit small. So when you've been there for like 2 years, you've seen it, done it, and there's nowhere else to go. So we're now on the mainland in Marbella, which is awesome. I feel like I'm back in the real world a little bit. There's a Starbucks, and that was like something we didn't even have on the island.
But you had a coffee shop, right? Just not a Starbucks?
We had a coffee shop, but yeah, it's not what you would call coffee. It wasn't great. I was starting to really miss my creature comforts. So yeah, it's much better now.
Well, that's good. I mean, like, I feel like you had your island experience and you're like all ready to go. I'm getting ready to have a jungle experience in a couple of weeks. I'm going to Peru and staying in the Amazon for a couple of weeks and really looking forward to that. My oldest son just graduated high school, and so it's been, I got one more left to go. He graduates next year. So, all right, take it away. Let's take it away and talk to us about this three-part formula.
Okay, so what I want to start by saying is the reason that I'm so passionate about this subject is because I know what it feels like to struggle with this topic. Money, that word 6-7 years ago would have brought up for me a lot of negative emotion. It instilled a fear in me. I was terrified of the subject of money. It made me feel a little bit sick. And when I speak to other women, other female entrepreneurs, the number one thing that comes up over and over again is money blocks, fear. What if I can't make it? What if I can't pay my bills? And it doesn't go away the more you earn. It's something that needs addressing. You see, I used to think that if I earn more, it will go. If I earn more, I'll feel better. If I earn more, I'll feel secure. And what I realized was that even when I was earning more, double, triple, quadruple the amount that I was earning, that fear didn't go. I then started worrying about losing it. So it's really important to nurture our relationship with money, because if we don't, just purely from a manifestation point of view, it doesn't show up for us. But also from a subconscious point of view, we make very different decisions. We make more emotional decisions in business rather than strategic decisions. It really affects that decision-making process. But also the other part of it is the financial side, in terms of looking after the money that comes in and making smart decisions so that we are in control of our finances and that our money can continue to multiply. So I kind of went from growing up in a family that I wouldn't say struggled. It wasn't like we were living in poverty, but everybody worked really hard for their money. Everybody had a job. Everybody wore their work ethic like a badge of honor. You know, I was from a family that believed in grafting and working hard for their money. And one of the biggest influences in my life was my granddad, and he's such an amazing man, and was such an amazing man. But he rejected the idea of wealth completely. You know, he thought that rich people were in some way egotistical, selfish. They were up to no good. They weren't happy. And I took on a lot of those beliefs as my own. And I think that's what started the struggle really for me. And it wasn't until I broke free of those beliefs that I started to really feel able and capable of developing outrageous success financially. So what I want to do is make it easier for anybody that's listening to shift their relationship with money immediately and see that show up for them in their bank balance, because I don't believe this has to take years. It doesn't have to be something that we struggle with intensely. It doesn't have to be a slow process. It's something that when we're committed, we can shift pretty quickly, and it has a phenomenal effect. So the first part of the formula is about exactly that. It's about understanding what's going on for us in our subconscious. So this is more, I suppose, the science and the less woo-woo. I always describe myself as being woo-woo meets practical, because I believe in the universe. I believe in a source that is constantly looking out for us, but we need to know how to manage that and align with that source for us to get what we want and for things to show up for us. But I also know that from a subconscious point of view, we can sometimes hinder our own success financially by making decisions from the wrong place with the wrong mindset. And that's the first part, is that subconscious, and understanding what is it that I've stored in my subconscious around the subject of money? What beliefs do I have that I'm maybe not even aware of? Because if you imagine it like a computer backup system, no different to Google, you know, it's anything you do on your computer is being stored all of the time. So if the police were to come and seize your computer right now, if you did something naughty, which I'm sure you haven't and you won't, but if they did, they would be able to recall all of the information, everything, even the things that you think you've deleted. And that's exactly the same as this backup system we kind of have in our heads. It's recording everything all of the time, every conversation. And our conscious brain doesn't need all of that information all of the time. So it's not something we're always consciously aware of. And in the subject of money, this can go back right to when you were a child. Maybe there's things in there like, you know, similar to me, that you had family members that had beliefs around money that you took on as your own. The first thing is understanding it by getting it on paper and really giving yourself that time to take an hour, 2 hours, however long it takes, in a quiet space where you can just be at one with your thoughts, clear your mind, and empty your head of any negative association to money. So anything that goes back to childhood, any arguments you might have had over money, any arguments you might have overheard over money, anytime you may have been stolen from, anything at all, get it all down. Because when it's on paper, you can stand back and look at it and say, okay, I can see where that feeling comes from, you know, where that negative association comes from, and maybe why I'm not striving for the sort of financial success that I could be striving for. Because when we know what it is, we can then work hard to clear it. And it's a very simple process. I believe the subconscious is really powerful. I think that's the part of our brain that's pulling all of the strings, telling us what not to do and what to do before we're even kind of aware that we're making those decisions. It already kind of knows what you're going to do. It shows up for me in food. You know, if I tell myself on Sunday night, I am not going to eat cake as of tomorrow, my brain already knows that I'm going to eat cake tomorrow. And I do it subconsciously. You know, I kind of have already made the decision that I'm not going to stick to that. So it's exactly the same with money. When it's on paper, I would then take time to look at that, each thing that you've written down, each experience, and just say out loud, thank you so much for the experience, but you no longer serve me. Cancel, clear, delete. Cancel, clear, delete. And then I scribble out everything. And I do this probably every quarter. It's become a ritual of mine, because once you've done that, you feel lighter. You have a newfound clarity on your relationship with money. You do automatically think differently, but it's something that it's not just kind of a one-time exercise. It needs to be something that's always a work in progress, because things get in. we're subjected to other people's opinions and thoughts all of the time. You've only got to turn the TV on and you'll hear people's beliefs around money show up in TV programs. So it's important to keep doing that. Now, the second thing is, from a manifestation point of view, it's really asking ourselves, what is my relationship like with money? And think about it like a relationship. Because we're in a relationship with everything in our life we're in a relationship with. We're in a relationship with our work, we're in a relationship with our spouse, loved ones, God if we're spiritual, and we're in a relationship with money. And for a relationship to thrive and be a successful one, it needs nurturing, it needs attention, and it needs work. And if you think about your relationship as a relationship and compare it to maybe that of one with your husband, then if you're somebody, for example, that finds the subject of money a little bit taboo and you don't want to talk about it, look at it, it's not something you would discuss around the dinner table, makes you feel a little bit sick, think about how you would feel or how your relationship would be with your husband if you were like that with him. If you didn't talk about him around the dinner table, it was a bit taboo, it made you feel a little bit sick. That relationship would definitely not be a healthy one, and therefore it wouldn't thrive. Now, in terms of the way we feel about money will determine how much shows up for us from a vibrational point of view, from an energetic point of view. So the lowest vibrations we can possibly be feeling are things like guilt. So, ask yourself, when I think of myself at the best expression of me, at my wealthiest, living my dream life, how does that make me feel? A lot of people will say guilty, especially if there's people around you that you love that maybe don't earn that amount. And first of all, address that, because if there's feelings of guilt there, if there's feelings of anxiety there, they're low vibration feelings. What we want to do is fall in love with money, because love is the highest vibration that we can possibly be on. It's the highest expression of our true self. I personally believe that we are, as energy, just love. And if we can fall in love with money, we'll see so much more of it show up. So it's about practicing and almost training yourself to love money. And that can be difficult at first, especially, as a bill comes through the door. And you might think to yourself immediately, oh, I don't want to pay that bill. You might start to feel resentful, anxious. But see that as money and the thing that you love, because whatever you're paying for is valuable, I'm sure, and something to be really grateful for. Even if it's a water bill, if we switch to gratitude and love, how grateful should we all be that we get to turn a tap on and water comes out? There's always a place for gratitude when paying bills. So it's about just training ourselves just subtly to change the way we feel when we're parting with money, when we see money. So if you're in a shop, for example, and you get to the cash register, I can remember paying for things and feeling, really guilty that I was spending, and, I shouldn't be feeling this, or I shouldn't be spending this, or can I really afford this? The anxiety would start rising. And there was a lot of resistance with me handing over that money. And obviously that resistance creates blocks, because money's energy, it needs to flow freely. And what I do now instead, something very simple, is as I'm paying for something, no matter how large or how small, I think silently to myself, plenty more where that came from, plenty more where that came from. And every time I see money, it's an opportunity for me to send love, because what we send love to shows up more. So it could be that you're walking down the street and you see a penny or a cent, wherever you're from, on the floor. How many times I've seen this show up so much, where someone will open their purse at the cash register and a cent or a penny will fall out onto the floor, and they'll see that it's just a penny and leave it on the floor. And that act of money is energy. The universe doesn't know the difference between a 1 cent, $1, and $1 million. But it's about loving it, showing it respect for more to show up. Rich people respect money. Rich people love money. So it's about treating every little bit of money with respect and love, and also seeing that as a sign that more is showing up for you. So if I'm walking down the street and I see $1 on the floor, I'm picking it up. And I'm picking it up and I'm showing it love and respect, and thank you, thank you, thank you. I see that as a sign that way more is on its way to me. And it's almost like when we switch to that state, everything just moves And it's like everything we touch turns to gold. It feels like magic. And the third thing is the savvy side of being financially free. You know, it's okay to practice manifestation. It's okay to fall in love with money, but when it starts showing up, we need to know what to do with it. Because when I really got this stuff right and I was able to generate a seven-figure business, that first year that I earned seven figures was a really difficult year for me because I made some really crap decisions. And I talk about this openly, although it makes me cringe still when I look back, but I do it because I want other people to learn from my mistakes. You know, as I started to earn more, I started to spend more. And I was earning seven figures and still lying in bed worrying about paying my bills, because I was worrying about keeping myself in this lifestyle, this new lifestyle that I'd made for myself. I just increased my outgoings. My house was bigger. I was driving a nicer car. I was going on more holidays. I was eating in expensive restaurants. I was buying branded clothes that I don't even care for, because I was trying to become this vision of what I thought you had to become to be wealthy. And all that then happens is you increase your outgoings to match your incomings, and you're no better off. You've got no more peace of mind. You're no more stable. So I made some crap decisions, and it wasn't until my accountant rang at the end of the tax year to say, this is how much you owe in tax. This is how much you owe in VAT. And I didn't have it. I just didn't have the money. And I didn't even know that I had a seven-figure business until he rang with my figures, because as the money was coming in, I was just spending. It was going out, and I really wasn't in control. And I realized that was that moment. It was the best lesson. I'm so grateful for it, because I realized that manifestation, getting clear on money blocks and being able to earn more, is only a part of the puzzle, because we then need to be financially savvy. You know, money doesn't give you peace of mind. It doesn't give you stability. It doesn't give you freedom. What gives you that is a financial education. So if you're earning just a little bit right now and you're not in control of it, I guarantee you won't be in control of it when you're earning lots either, because nothing changes. You're the same person with more money. And that was true for me. You know, when I was earning $2,000 a month, I always got to the end of the month with nothing. And when I was earning $100,000 a month, I was getting to the end of the month with nothing, because I hadn't changed. So start that process now would be my advice. Get in control now. Because you're showing your money respect by doing it, and you're showing it love by doing it, but also because it will serve you in the long run. And the way I would do that is ask yourself a couple of questions with me now. You know, be really honest. Do you know exactly to the dollar how much comes in every single month into your household? Do you know exactly what percentage you maybe spend on household bills of that income? What percentage do you spend on business expenses? What percentage do you allocate for investment? What percentage do you allocate for savings? Could you reel off to the dollar what that is right now? Do you know exactly where your money goes? A lot of people can't. A lot of people don't know exactly how much debt they're in, or exactly where their money goes. And they have this feeling of, I don't know where it goes. It just goes. And if we allow money to filter out unconsciously, it's showing it a lack of respect, but B, we will always do that regardless of how much we're earning. So the best way to do this, and you will totally resist this intensely. Everybody does, especially if it's something you feel like is totally out of control in your life and you're a bit scared to look at it. But facing it, what it actually is the first step in major change, and then putting focus on where you want it to go, because where focus goes, energy flows. You know, what we focus on grows all the time. So there's an app actually called Spending, something I still use to this day. It's just a habit, a discipline that I've embedded. And regardless of how much my income grows in the future, I will always make sure that I'm using this app, because it really helps me get out of a mess. It helps you to understand what your monthly goings are in detail and by line, and it helps you to set budgets for yourself, food budgets, petrol budgets, self-development budgets, so that when you're spending, you can go into the app, take it off your budget and see at a glance how much is left. And you can set goals for yourself. So if you want by the end of the year to have 20k in savings, then you can set that as a goal in the app, and you can start moving a proportion of the money to make that happen, and you see that increasing. that in itself gives you the motivation to continue that process, because you're seeing it improve. But also, you can see, where am I overspending? You know, once it's there in black and white, you can look at it and say, am I overspending in areas where it's really unnecessary? Am I looking after and respecting my money in every area? You know, if I'm spending, I don't know, $1,000 on a mortgage that I've had for the last 5 years, is it time to shop around? Am I getting the best deal on my gas, electricity? Am I getting the best deal on my medical insurance? You know, you can start making yourself smaller. And if there's debt there, you know what the figure is. And then you know, Robert Kiyosaki is one of my idols in this subject. And if you haven't read his books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's incredible. He's actually got a new book out, I think, that came out very recently, that I'm halfway through reading right now. And he talks about, you know, if you're in debt, make yourself small. And it is the best advice, because the best thing we can do for ourselves is make our financial footprint as small as possible if we're in a bit of a tricky situation financially. And you'll be amazed at how you can do that when you just look at it line by line. You'll be amazed at how creative you can be in cutting back and pulling out some of the things that you maybe don't need to spend. This is a process that I would start no matter where you are financially. And that's the three-step formula. So understand what's going on in the subconscious, get it on paper, cancel, clear, delete, fall in love with money, be careful how you communicate with it and how you think about it whenever it shows up. See that as a signal to send it love and gratitude for even for your bills and your debt. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And number 3, get savvy, get in control of your finances now so they don't get out of control in the future.
Michelle, that was so amazing. I truly do enjoy the depth of experience and the depth of, like, not only your own personal journey, but what you're willing to share with other people. Some of the people may or may not know that I own a debt collection company. So debt is a specialty of mine. And that's one of the reasons why I think that Michelle and I align so well, is because one of the things that I absolutely know as a universal truth is that having a debt is a psychological burden. And it's a burden that gets in between people and living the lifestyle or living through their dreams. People even make decisions differently. So if they have a debt, or I would really say if they have a shame around their money situation, then they're not likely to apply for the same job or apply for a mortgage. They're not even likely to date the same person, because there's this underlying feeling of shame and unworthiness. And I feel like in your first step, it's all about that. It's like changing your relationship with that financial piece of your life, because, you know, we really do live in the greatest times ever. That I mean, I'm certainly a rags to riches story. It sounds like you are too, but we're living in a time that's available to everyone. And, you know, as I was listening to you talk, especially in the beginning, I was reminded of a lot of things that I've been studying lately about trauma, and how you were talking about everything being in the subconscious. Because here's the thing, and I would say this is true about those, we perceive those files to be deleted. Like you were saying, these things that have happened to us, there's these things that have influenced us, and these things are in the past. So if you had a traumatic experience in life, whether that be about money or whether that be about abuse, but anything that sort of happened in your past, especially in your childhood, the thing is that the impact of that situation, it's not in the past, because the impact is truly in how it's showing up in your present day. And so when we bring this in and have a conversation about finances around that trauma, you know, maybe you saw your mother, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles receiving phone calls from debt collectors, or maybe you saw I know, like in my own situation, my mom told me stories about having to give blood, because they would like exchange, if you gave blood, they would exchange like for food. And she would do that to get like a box of macaroni and cheese for us. But it's like when you begin to understand this outlook, and I've been talking a lot lately about empowerment versus disempowerment. And so I think that you and I are talking about the same thing. You were using a different language. You were talking about, vibration. And I see it as like, if we ask ourselves a question, how well are we from a scale of 1 to 20? That's really how well we are on the inside. That number is a reflection of everything on the outside. And when we can understand that being in a place of empowerment is the most important thing when it's coming to things like law of attraction or attracting to us what we want. When we're in this feeling of empowerment, everything shows up for us faster, better, stronger, longer lasting, and most importantly, more impactful. And what I loved too about your third step is that practical part about really taking a look. You're not creating a dependency for someone to have to rely on a coach to remove this for them. But like, I talk about this a lot in like understanding a need versus a want. And especially as an entrepreneur, and I know you're a young entrepreneur yourself, that money story can easily turn into a roller coaster. And when you really learn to understand that, okay, you may need a car, but you may want a Mercedes Benz, and what really is the difference? Because we spend these decades of our lives accumulating. And I'm here to tell you that when you get into the fourth decade of your life, you're going to look around and you're going to realize that all of that material, those material things that you've accumulated over the years, actually act as baggage, and they become something that actually disempowers you. So do you have any thoughts on that? Like how things, and I think that because I know how you're nomadic, you would probably agree that all those material things they're like baggage.
Do you know, I couldn't agree more. This is music to my ears, because that year that I was spending, I was buying stuff. I couldn't even tell you now what stuff. That's how important it was. I was filling my wardrobe with stuff. I'd got this big house that was filled with stuff. There's only me and my husband. It's ridiculous. The more stuff I bought, the more disempowered and unhappy I felt, the more dissatisfied. It felt like a hole that was kind of getting bigger the more things that I surrounded myself with. And the thing is, now I did something drastic on this, and it was a total accident. My husband and I had always had a dream of traveling around in a camper van, a really hippie style kind of, let's just go. And because we now have this location independent business, we can work from anywhere. We said, let's do it. I looked around my house and I thought, not one of these things makes me happy. What makes me happy is freedom, being by the sea, experiencing different cultures and being around different people and eating different foods, and it's creating memories that matter. And we can do that, so let's do it. We sold, in fact, if you Google my name, one of the first article that comes up is this. It's a newspaper article because it got so much media attention. And it was ridiculous because to us, it was something that we were just doing. It was something that felt right. We sold everything we owned, everything. We sold the house, we had a camper van, so you can imagine I'd got a tiny wardrobe. I could fit the clothes that I needed to wear in it, nothing more. And everything else had to go. The only things we kept were the sentimental things. When we were going through this process, it became a cleansing process. And it's something that I always include in my programs around improving your relationship with money is decluttering, and only keeping things around you that you absolutely love, things that light you up and make you feel abundant. And I was going through my wardrobe and looking at all these clothes and shoes and handbags, and not one of them made me feel abundant, or they didn't light me up. And in my little camper van, all I had was the things that I needed and the things that I loved. And I was the happiest that I'd ever been. And now I'm very careful about doing that again. So we live in a beautiful home, but everything that I buy is because I love it. It's not just because, I need it or I see it and I think, oh, that's nice, I'm going to buy it. I have to love everything. Everything has to light me up. And there need to be things that, if I'm going to travel, if I'm going to move again, which is highly likely, and I decide that I'm going to move in 12 months to the other side of the world, I'm paying to take that stuff with me because they are my absolute treasures. Because if I'm going to part with money, one of the things that I love most in the world next to my family, then it's got to be for something that I love. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. I was going to reflect on before I do this, because I was going to reflect on something here. I've got a list of like cleansers or clogs for the finances. But okay, so your thing that you were saying about, money, whether you have a $2,000 a month or whether you have $100,000 a month, what does it matter if you have nothing left at the end of the month, because all of that has moved through you? Well, recently, as I was at a film festival, I got to have dinner with one of the like very elite people that had come to the film festival. And it was this older lady who was married to like one of the directors or somebody associated with the film festival. And I was out to dinner with her, and I'm going to say she was probably about 80 years old. So she was up there, and she shared with me that she recently had to sell their mansion that they lived in, and she had to buy this smaller mansion. Okay. So I think a lot of us think, okay, like what's the big deal? She's downsizing. But she had tears in her eyes because what had happened was that she'd lived through she didn't live through it. She was right after the Depression. So she was maybe a small child during the Depression or born right after that. So her parents were very, very poor, and she was from the New York area. So what happened was that she had hired a financial planner that apparently did some bad maneuvering and wiped them out a lot of their fortune. And so now there was going to be no inheritance for the children. But to watch her go through how this disempowered her, it made me so sad, because it's like what you see is whether somebody has had a life of wealth or whether someone has a, the life of not being wealthy, we still all have that money story. And what I saw in her was this overwhelming sadness, and she was so ashamed and blaming herself. And one of the things that I noticed about you is that your willingness to share that story when you'd hit 7 figures. And I think it's so important to hear this, because if you attach yourself, or if you don't forgive yourself for those financial mistakes, then those financial mistakes will continue to manifest in your future experience. And so something that you did that I really admire was you made the decision, what can I learn from that? And you turned it into a lesson for yourself. And by the way, I did the same thing, because there were years in my business that was going very well. And I thought that meant that everything was going to be on the upward mobility from there. And then when I got divorced, it wasn't the case. And I got divorced right in 2008 when the economy also took a nosedive. And so I really went from being what I felt like was on the top of my game down to the bottom of my game and starting over in a lot of ways. So, all right, well, if anyone in the webinar wants to ask a question, you can do one of two things. If you have a question for Michelle, you can either raise your hand, and if you do that, I'll turn on your audio so you can talk to us directly, or you can put a question in the Q&A, or just simply put it in the chat box, because I am happy to help you. Of course, we will be sending out this replay to all of you if you've registered for it. And if you are watching on Facebook Live, you just let us know if you have any questions, and we will be happy to answer them. So Michelle, do you have any parting words or any words you want to follow up with? Donna says she loves cancel, clear, delete. Loves it. I love it too. I'm going to do it today with more things than just money. But anyway, take it away, Michelle.
I think I'd love to come back just for a minute and just end on the word empowerment, because it's a really important word to end on. If we feel empowered on the subject of money, everything changes. That's about being in control. So I would say don't resist getting in control and really looking at those finances and seeing what it is and what you want it to be and having a plan for that. But also empowerment in terms of empowered communication around the subject of money, because when we sit, if you're in business and you're sat doing a goal board and declaring that you're going to earn X amount of pounds and live in that house, and when you're doing that, that's great. But if you're in your everyday communication with the universe saying something else, so if you're going into a shop and saying, I can't afford that, you say that with so much certainty. You say it with way more certainty than you do when you're maybe setting your goals. Because when we're setting goals, there's always that element of disbelief, like, can I, will I, really? But when you say, I can't afford that, and when you communicate in a daily way with money, it's normally with a lot more certainty, and that's where the power is. So switch all of your communication to empowered when it comes to money. So rather than saying, I can't afford that, you can say, I'm choosing to save. Wealthy people save. It's just being mindful of how we're communicating that message, because if we make an effort to communicate in an empowered, loving, grateful way, there comes a point, and it happens quite quickly with consistency, where that's how you really genuinely begin to feel.
Yeah, I love the part about, even expressing that you don't really need that, because believe me, if you walk away and you're still thinking about it 2 days later, you'll go back and get it. It's fine. You won't lose your opportunity to buy it. We've got 2 questions that came in, and I want to follow up before we get to the questions on what you said about empowerment, because if you are not feeling in a state of empowerment, what I want to tell you is, if you've answered that question from 1 to 20 and you're feeling like you're below a 10, which, by the way, just 2 weeks ago, I rated myself at a 7, then what I want you to do is to focus on yourself and self-care. And the way that you do that, I've got this new, very simple definition for self-care, which just means taking space for yourself, taking space to give yourself a healthy place until you get above that 10. And what you want to think about is, if you are feeling disempowered, this is not the time to be buying things. This is not the time to be creating. This is not the time to be manifesting. So when you are feeling that, if you can step back and just wait a few days until you get yourself in that more empowered state of being, then again, everything that you manifest is going to have a greater impact. So Lisa has a very practical question, and one that I love. It says, how many months do you suggest to have in your savings account to cover your monthly bills? So how many months do you suggest? Oh, she just repeated the same question twice. So I think that this is kind of like an age-old question. And even my son asked me the other day, Mom, do you have 6 months of savings in your account? So what's your thoughts on that, Michelle? That's a great question.
It is a great question, and one that I don't think there's one answer or one size fits all. I've read a lot of books where it says you should have this, you should have that, but I think that in itself is quite disempowering. I think it has to be very specific to you and what's important to you. But I love the fact that, I think you said Lisa, is talking about being wealthy in months, not in amounts, and that is really smart, because that's what I didn't do. So Lisa, I want to congratulate you on that thought, because when I was earning ridiculous amounts of money for the first time and I was spending it, I was looking at what I was earning as a figure and saying, well, I'm wealthy because I earn this, when actually you're wealthy, I believe, in terms of months. So how many months could I live if everything fell apart right now? We don't want to think about things falling apart necessarily, but we want to know that's our security. So I think having a goal to grow it continuously is smart. So I started out saying, I want to be 3 months rich. When I hit it, I want to be 6 months rich. I want to be 12 months rich. I want to be 5 years rich. Keep pushing the boundaries, keep expanding the space that you hold for money.
Michelle, that was an absolutely brilliant answer, because what you did was you flipped that old-fashioned belief system that we have that makes something a struggle, and you created it as a goal. You flipped it to a goal or a challenge. Let me see if I can get 1 month wealthy. Let me see if I can get 2 months wealthy. And what I would add to that is also, like, what can I reduce? So if I think in terms of how many months do I have saved, I know that in order to reach that goal, I'm always thinking, like, how can I close my circle in and what can I eliminate? When I'm always thinking about, like, things in terms of elimination. Kylie asked a question about the author that you mentioned a couple books. I know you mentioned Robert Kiyosaki. and she wants you to repeat the book you recommended as well as the money management app you recommended.
So Robert Kiyosaki's book, definitely start with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. There's an updated version right now on Amazon, actually, that's been updated within the last 12 months. It's a purple cover, amazing book. And the spending app is called Spending. So when you download it, it's like a brown wallet and it's a free app.
Very good. Very good. So, Michelle, tell all of the people that are watching how they can find you.
You can find me on Facebook. So if you'd like to follow me on Facebook, actually, every Sunday I do a masterclass live at 8 p.m. UK time. So that's GMT, but you can always catch it on replay. And we cover, varied things for female entrepreneurs. Some of it's around money mindset and continuing to delve into these subjects, but also we work on business strategy for female entrepreneurs that are building, in particular, online businesses. So you can find me there, or michellestonhill.com. There's some free audios and free downloadables there too.
Yeah, and I think that the time frame's actually pretty decent, because I know that when I did a masterclass with you, it was only like 2 p.m. my time on a Sunday. So it was
Cool.
actually perfect for me, because I'm like way more awake at 2 p.m. than I am later on in the day. So I think we've got about a 6 hour time difference. Michelle, thank you so very much for taking time out of your evening. Congratulations on the book. I'm so very happy for you. I'm thrilled that I know you, and I just think you are beautiful inside and out. And I look forward to watching your continued adventures and seeing what
Thank
you
you
do.
so much for having me. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Please don't be a stranger. If you ever, if you want to ever do any projects again, just let me know, because I'd be all up for it.
Absolutely. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, darling.
Take care. Bye.